1956, 11 years after the war, the bomb damage in central London looked like this. I decided to make some tests, and partly to prove that I was actually making a film. And I'm shocked to see how fast the pans are, which is the mark of an amateur, a rank amateur. The German soldier is my friend David Lafferty, and all we did were these few shots, but at least it said that we were making a film. Weeks later, I'm filming in Soho, and the chap who got me my job in the film industry, Ivar Cowlins, I've given him the lead in the film as a German naval officer. But you can see, honestly, I've got the ambition to make this film, but I haven't a clue how to do it. And I don't even write a script. The chap on the left there, the German officer, a friend, supposed to be a friend of the naval officer, it was an ex-German prisoner. But look at his hat. It's got a hole in the peak and the badges don't fit. It's simply terrible. Now, shortly after that came the celebration of the Battle of Britain, and Ivar Cowlins has sensed how amateur this thing is and has walked off, and I've replaced him with a friend called Grant Thompson, who's that's not him. The Air Ministry has put authentic German bombers, Heinkels and Dorniers, on Horse Guards parade, and I'm photographing close-ups of Grant Thompson. I haven't a clue what to do with them, and now he's off on some urgent appointment, which I can't think what it is. And that's actually me. I haven't got enough extras, so I stand in. You can see how young I am. It's ridiculous. 18 years old. And that's the establishing shot of Horse Guards parade. That's September. A few weeks later, I've met Andrew Mollo, and now there are two of us making this film. Andrew and I are united by this stallholder, Bill Tobin. Derek Hill in the centre of this shot is somebody who had a great effect on the film and on my career. We're putting posters up. The standard of costuming is infinitely superior. We've got a continuity girl, proper old-fashioned buses, and I'm looking a bit brisker. Andrew finds tourists to play German officers in the early morning. And this is what the stuff looked like on film. It does look a lot different, I think you agree. And in now 1957, October, we found somebody who helps us tremendously is Mark Dineley, the owner of the Baptist Weapons Agency, who gives us the run of his land in Wiltshire, his farmhouse, which he allows us to blow up, weapons, ammunition, and you can see this actually looks like news. This is Peter Dineley, Mark Dineley's son, and extras who were to stay with us throughout the film. Derek Milburn, who's an expert on makeup, and ex-parachutist. This authenticity of these scenes, entirely due to Andrew, give us all tremendous feeling of excitement that something is really happening. Now we are in New Radnor, and we convert it a little, Dr. Jobson, who gives us the run of his village, his house, and the loan of his wife, who is to play the lead in the film a few months later. We're shooting the evacuation scene, which means press ganging the entire population into helping us, which they do with great enthusiasm. There's Andrew. This is Pauline in her first appearance in the film. No more German naval officers. These ladies have brought out their 1940s hats. And this film is shot by my new assistant editor at the documentary company I worked for, Peter Watkins. He photographed it and edited it. There's the continuity girl, Rosemary Claxton, a policeman, ex-policeman playing a policeman, the secretary from Worldwide. A local farmer, and an awful lot of children who, I think those look too much like the Bisto kids, so we dropped them. Ben Rayner, a filmmaker, made up to look like a yokel. And the doctor's car used as a camera car. This is the secretary from Worldwide Pictures, a local landowner, and that wonderful policeman. That's Eric Mivel, who went on to make the film about the making of Winstanley, It Happened Here Again, and who served as an assistant director throughout the early part of this picture. We also had to find all the vehicles. They all had to be pre-war and wartime. And the locals had to bring out the clothes they hadn't worn for a decade or so. Now this is Andrew yelling instructions, don't go so fast, because inevitably what happens is what happened here, which was a prang, which I seem to find amusing. There's a local farmer checking on his vehicles. We had to paint those signs every time we needed them. The children were having a marvellous time, but the boys tended to be rather remote and didn't want to take part. Dr. Jobson films the filming himself on a 9.5mm camera, and a few weeks later we moved back to southwest England and to a tank museum at Bovington, Dorset, where you see a German half-track loaned to us. We had no motor, so we had to haul it by rope through past picturesque English houses until we got our tank. This was a 45-ton Yacht Panther from the end of the war, the biggest tank in the tank museum. The museum allowed us to have it for an entire morning so we could put it in the precise location we needed. An infantry column marches through Westminster under the supervision of Andrew Mollo, and that's a wartime conductress still wearing her uniform, who we persuaded to come on the film. German soldiers in the courtyard of the British Museum. The authorities were very shocked that we brought a London bus in, the first time that had ever happened, apparently. These shots were filmed for a battle scene which we never used, but we took a lot of the best shots for action montages during the early part of the film. It's a shame because they look rather good, and we had real Germans playing the part, real German vehicles. These are tests with red filters, trying to see how night scenes could be done. There's a sort of romantic look to them, which is completely unintentional. That's Andrew playing the officer, and they are not scenes from the film. They're just, this isn't either. It's Andrew's boat being bombed in the bath. More stuff of Pauline. These are tests to see how far we could go with the night scene in the little house when the group are stranded in the village. But it doesn't have none of this had the right look. We really wanted it much more realistically dark. This is Andrew again. He climbed on one of the rooftops in the village and opened fire with a rifle at night. Pauline was absolutely furious with us. I don't blame her. But we did get the shot. That's a real moon. This is Peter Watkins in the cutting room, and this is more of a joke. When lorries are loaded and the civilians depart, there's a scene in which Pauline and her friend argue about the partisans. And we wanted to introduce the idea of the occupation gently. And I was trying a sequence in a church with a German army chaplain. And that's Pat Sullivan, a great friend of ours. And Dick Jobson playing the role of the chaplain. This is a sequence which went wrong in every possible way. The camera was out of focus. It was a sync sound camera which didn't work properly. Pauline had a migraine. I seem to remember a Salvation Army band went past right at a crucial moment. It was just absolutely awful, and we threw it away and started again with the sequence you see in the film. This is a different... I didn't photograph this because I didn't feel up to handling a sync sound camera, and unfortunately the cameraman we chose wasn't up to it either, and luckily we replaced him with Peter Sushitsky, who took over on the 35mm section. This is all 16mm. Barrage balloons. I had great nostalgia for barrage balloons from my wartime childhood and wrote them into the suburban house sequence. We had to go up to Cardington to photograph them, and this was where the airships R100 and R101 were housed. But since Munich they had barrage balloons, and they were still in use in the 60s for meteorological purposes. This is Christopher Slaughter and Andrew Mollo with John Leeds behind. And this is Peter Watkins. And they're in a truck. There's Ridge Gardner. And it's a group of German soldiers going through the English countryside singing German marching songs. And it just didn't work. Somehow amateur actors are often on the edge of laughter, and this was certainly no exception. And we just couldn't make it work. We hadn't shot it sync sound. We thought we could dub it afterwards, but it just didn't have the atmosphere, didn't have anything going for it, so we dropped it. But it serves as a record of the young Andrew Mollo. And he's about to burst into laughter too, by the look of it. This is the evacuation scene fragments, interruption by cattle, and Pauline watching a non-existent vehicle going past, Eric Mivel with a very unconvincing beard, and Pauline finally left behind by the convoy and not knowing how to react. Andrew put together this German band in the most remarkable way. I asked for it in the script, and he found the drums, he found the Sergeant Major's baton, he found the Schellenbaum at the back there, without which no German band could march. And they're going through Chester Gate in 1962, and they annoyed the War Minister. His butler came to the door and protested, and his name was John Profumo, the War Minister. And now the film about World War II that took longer to make than the war took to fight is over, and I take Andrew as a treat to see the London Pavilion. Thunderball, the James Bond smash hit, has been taken down, and our film has gone up, the only amateur film ever to be shown at a big West End theatre. And the number of people that turn out to see it is quite extraordinary, and we can't imagine that money would not be made from our film. The United Artists have spent a fortune on advertising it, £42,000 I seem to remember, and a lot of people come to see it. Well, they say they didn't make money from it, but we certainly didn't. Somebody certainly did. There's a rather splendid evangelist carrying his message to the crowds in the West End. The end is at hand. Oh, no, yes, that's right. The end is at hand. And there is the inevitable buskers. Oh, here's one. Flee from the wrath to come, which is even better. And the fact that the buskers turn out suggests that somebody is making money from the film, even if we didn't. I couldn't believe my eyes, because this queue goes all the way round the London Pavilion. And if you don't believe me, just watch it. Several of the people in the queue thought I was wasting film. This is the back of the London Pavilion. Now the Trocadero, I believe. And there it goes all the way back to Piccadilly. But as I say, we didn't make a brass farthing, but we had the most extraordinary and memorable time.